Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the second of GSMA's virtual membership events that we're holding today. My name's Ian Pannell. I'm the Chief Engineer at the GSMA, and it's my pleasure to welcome everybody and to introduce the session. Today's session is going to be focusing on the second half of our working group activities. This morning we looked at security, eSIM, internet topics, and and now we're going to be covering billing and accounting, roaming, and networks. Could you have the next slide, please? In terms of the session, the agenda we're going to be talking about, I will open up and give a brief introduction to the GSMA's working groups and what they do. My colleague Julia Goldstrand, who's the head of roaming in GSMA, will provide an introduction to the working group leaders who are on this webinar, and then hold a fireside chat with them on what they're working with. We'll have a brief resume from our GSMA membership team and then close. I'd like to remind you all of the little bit of text on the left-hand side of the screen at the moment. If you want to submit a question, then there's a Q&A button on the right of your screen. Press that button and type your question away, and hopefully that'll get picked up and answered by the people on the webinar. Have the next slide, please. So the GSMA working groups, they are the traditional engines for the creation of specifications and reference documents within the GSMA. They've been some of them been in existence for nearly 30 years or so, perhaps even more. The focus is across networks, roaming, terminals, devices, eSIM and SIM technologies, billing and data exchange, fraud and security, internet and intellectual property. Quite a diverse set of topics, but all very important to the industry. And the role of these groups is very important. They are the place where all of these topics get addressed within the GSMA, and where we work out what are important topics to be addressed and how we actually create specifications to support those various areas. So this is a very important part of what the GSMA is about, and I hope you find it interesting in terms of the view from the working group chairs that we've got to talk. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Julia, and perhaps we can move on to the next slide at the same time as well.
Thanks, Ian. So hello everyone. As Ian introduced me, I'm Julia Goldstrand, Head of Roaming and Interworking at the GSMA, and I'm here just as the moderator for the session. And we have three chairs with us today. We have Pascal Dejardin from Orange, who looks after our Interoperability Data Specifications Group, Sandra Ondrusova from Hutchison, who looks after the Networks Group, and Kathleen Leach, T-Mobile, who chairs our Wholesale Agreements and Solutions Group. So if you would like to speak, turn on your cameras now and your audio, and we can get started. Hi, Kathleen.
Good afternoon. Good morning.
Hi, Pascal. Great. Good to see you all. And thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm really grateful for you dedicating this time to this session, and hopefully we'll all get some benefit out of it at the end of the day with lots of new members. So just to kick off today, I'd like to each of you to introduce and tell us a little bit about the group that you're responsible for, and also the benefits to participating in your group. So perhaps we can kick off with Sandra, as you're largest on my screen at the moment, so you can go first.
So hello everyone. As Julia said, my name is Sandra Ondrusova, and I'm the chair of the Networks Group. And as the name of this group already indicates, we look after the guidelines and the group profiles that has everything to do with the networks. So it's not only, as I said, the guidelines, but also the test procedures for different voice and data services that the networks can offer, and also the guidelines for different roaming scenarios. The group also is working on the guidelines for the 3GPP mobile networks, or 3GPP mobile network generation. Also covers the RCS services. Also, it's about the IMS profiles, for example, for voice over LTE, voice over Wi-Fi, and now also voice over 5G. We also are responsible for maintaining and updating different databases, such as very important for the operators is IR21. Also, the part of NG is to prepare a reference model for the cloud infrastructure to support 5G services. And there are also many more topics that are currently being covered in NG. And what are the core benefits? It's that when you join us, you can work together with us on the solution. So, you are directly there when we are describing it, when we are working, when we are preparing it for the industry. And also we have many experts in the group with lots of years of experience. So even if you face some issues, you can bring it to us and we can help you to solve it.
That's great, Sandra. Thanks for that introduction. And now let's move on to Kathleen, please.
Yes. Hi. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you're joining us from, my name is Kathleen Leach. I'm with T-Mobile US, and I am your WAS chair, the Wholesale Agreements and Solutions. So traditionally, WAS is referred to as the business or the commercial group, right? So a lot of where the money lies, because this is the group that focuses particularly on the business and commercial aspects of interworking and roaming. So for example, we work anywhere from wholesale charging principles for all technologies and services, including obviously the new ones coming up, agreement and launch templates. We work on SLAs and agreements for how we reach an end-to-end SLA across the full ecosystem. So for commercial teams specifically, we also facilitate the communication and tariff negotiations that happen on either yearly or twice per year between our roaming partners. As well, we do a significant amount of education. As Sandra said, come to us. We've got huge numbers of experts, and they run from really recent experts to some of the new services and technologies that we're working on to people who have been in the roaming business since the beginning. So it's really exciting. You can go back, you can hear that history, you can learn from it, and then move on as we look toward the future. Some of the core benefits are everything, of course, I just mentioned, but key is the opportunity to get engaged and to drive and shape the future of how we work together. And as well, another benefit that you don't think about on the surface, but this is an international group. I learn something every single time, whether it is around technology, around business, around cultures, around communication styles. So every single meeting I learn something. So welcome to engage with us.
Thanks very much, Kathleen. And now moving on to Pascal.
Yeah, sure. So I have a short introduction from my group. So Pascal Dejardin from Orange. I'm based in Brussels, Belgium. And IDS, okay, it stands for Interoperability, Data Specification, and Settlement, so 3 keywords. And in fact, the group is responsible to define the standards to process the exchange of data files, sustain a settlement in a wholesale roaming agreement. So basically, what does it mean? So we have to specify all the guidelines. So every time we have a new technology coming, so we are working with W Solo and the WAS with Kathleen very closely. So we are challenged every time. So there's a new technology and we have to get prepared, making sure that we can sustain the business plans. That's so the benefits, I would say, from to join IDS. So challenges. So if you like technical challenges, so this is really the place to be, because as I said, we have to make sure that we define the right billing process to follow the business plans. So,
thanks very much, Pascal. Thank you. So Sandra and Kathleen, we talked a little bit about 5G there and your responsibilities there. Can you give us a bit more information about what particular things your groups are working on, and what are the goals this year to achieve to support 5G? So perhaps we can start with Kathleen this time.
For sure. So the WAS work group activities, they impact a number of different ecosystem players, right? We have mobile operators, we have mobile virtual operators, the MVNOs, certainly the IPX providers, hubs. Coming up more frequently are roaming value-added service providers. So I could go on and on here, but from a 5G perspective, we're looking to really expand our thinking to include a broader customer base, right? Those enterprise customers, whether it is IoT, network slicing. We're really looking at tackling some of these issues around how we work together with new technology, new services, on agreement templates, on network slicing, how we're going to deal with this from a roaming environment. Edge cloud is just coming in, so we're going to look at the charging principles around that. Do we need to modify, update, add, change any of our charging models to fit these new entrants, to fit these different services that we're going to do? As well, we never forget that we need to promote some of the technologies that we know so well, the M2M, IoT, if you will, and then our voice platform. So as we move voice over IMS, we're going to have to deal with voice over the new 5G network as well. So whether you call it voice over NR, voice VoNR, I've heard it, everything. I think we generically call it voice over IMS, but we're going to have to move and continue to promote that so that we can get voice. That is our only choice with 5G. I'm incredibly proud to say that as we focus on 5G and the new services we'll bring, we're finding we are happily as well, more actively engaged across all the different working groups. Pascal mentioned it, Sandra mentioned it, whether it is cross-functional work on the 5G roaming, security within the WAS 5G workshops. We always invite and welcome delegates there. The security work that I'm sure Sandra will explain more about. And then our new billing and settlement process. As Pascal noted, we're very intricately engaged with IDS in terms of delivering the requirements and achieving those common goals.
Thanks, Kathleen. It's a very important point that we can't do anything in isolation and we need each other. So great. Can I move on to Sandra? Can you perhaps give us a bit of an insight into what network groups are doing? Because everything you do is very important for what we put in the agreements. It was. So go ahead, please.
As Kathleen mentioned, we work very closely with the wholesale and agreement, WAS, wholesale agreement and solution. Sorry for we have a very long name and I always mix it. Because it's very important, especially when it comes to 5G and new generation, that not only the technology leads it, but now we have to work closely with business, and we need to go hand in hand. So the technology supports the business, and the business also supports the technology. So we cannot prepare a solution in isolation. We can take example, for example, as network slicing. It's a heavily discussed topic. It involves a lot of players also in the market. So whether it's enterprises or verticals, private networks, operators, vendors. So it's a very broad topic. And in NG, we are trying to prepare a solution that can be used by the whole industry, and also we try to support WAS when they need to update their wholesale agreement. So all these new changes are also captured there, so the operators can really work together and have the correct information. Another thing important, what Kathleen mentioned, is that we also need to support the existing services and also make sure that what we know as voice, SMS, and data that we used in the previous technologies are also supported in 5G. So we need to prepare also the profiles and also the network configuration, especially when the subscribers are roaming. So it needs to be supported all over the world. And as we are moving to 5G, everything is virtualized. So again, we need to have some reference models for the cloud infrastructure because we have different solutions, different vendors, different mobile operators, different requirements. And we need to make sure that everything will work as it should be. As Kathleen mentioned, working with other working groups is very important, and it's not only with the working groups, it's also with other GSMA groups or projects. We usually, as Kathleen mentioned, we usually attend their meetings, or we invite also experts from different working groups that can help us when we are discussing about certain topics, give us some recommendation, especially when it comes to the security topics, or when we were discussing network slicing, we had also discussion with the terminal steering group who are responsible for devices, because network slices will also impact devices that they need to be supported. And the very most discussed topic at the moment is the 5G roaming and the security and everything around it. At the moment, it's a very big project, and it involves 3 working groups. At the moment, we have experts from 3 working groups. They meet regularly, and it's a very good project with a very good discussion. So if you're interested in this project, please join GSMA and join us.
Thanks, Sandra. Yes, 5G is bringing lots of challenges, and we really need the members to support these and bring their requirements so we make sure we're heading in the right direction. But just looking back to 2020, another challenge we had was the implementation of VoLTE. And perhaps you can share, Sandra, some of the work you did in 2020 to support VoLTE implementations around the world.
Well, when we started, at the beginning of this year, we realized that the launching of the VoLTE services is not as fast as we expected that it will be. And there were also many problems, many issues when the operators tried to launch the service. There were also many documents where the solution was described, and different bits of pieces were described in different different documents. So we had a small group of experts who worked very hard to prepare a solution or to describe the problems and also list all the documents with the different solutions that are in one place. This group of experts were split into 6 different streams, and they covered areas such as VoLTE issues, emergency calling, SMS services, regulations, testing, and also updates to IR21. Each of these streams had regular meetings where they discussed the issues they discovered and also the progress and also the next steps. They also engage with different other groups. So, for example, when it comes to testing, they consulted with the terminal steering group, because terminal steering group is responsible for the device configuration. So our experts wanted to be sure that the proposed profiles, the profiles that they are proposing are the correct one and can be really tested and are supported by the devices. Similar, for example, the regulation stream, they contacted the GSMA regulatory team, and they discussed the different regulations in different countries, again, to make sure that the solution or the guideline that they are working on will really support these requirements. At the end, all these streams prepare their own reports, and these reports are now part of the GSMA VoLTE implementation guide that is available on GSMA webpage. And I would like to also say that this GSMA VoLTE implementation guide hasn't been prepared only by NG, but again, it's a hard work of all the working groups, such as BAS, terminal steering group, and also security group. And again, we see that the working groups need to work together to prepare the solution that can be used by the industry. So we cannot do work only in isolation. We have to work together.
Thanks, Sandra. So that was a real example of something that we found a problem and we set out to resolve it with our members. But with 5G, that started in a different way. So how do your work items normally evolve? And how do interested parties get involved in your work as well?
There are different ways how the work can start. So first example is network slicing. GSMA in the past had future networks projects where all these new ideas came from, or where there are a small group of people really interested in developing or further researching of these areas. When this whole project started, there were only 10 or 15 active members, and they initially, when they published the white paper with a lot of use cases that may require network slicing, this got interested in a lot of companies began interested in this topic and in this work, so they joined this small group. And as the work more progressed, the team, I think, began bigger and bigger. I think it's over 300 members now at the moment. They published several white papers. They also are responsible for what we call, what we know as generic slice template, or GST, that is broadly used in the industry and is also now a permanent reference document. So this is one way of working, that there is a small project, then it evolves and it's handed over to the working groups. Another way how we can start working on a new project or new activity is that when we are working on the solution, we discover there is some problems, or we need to involve different working groups, or we need to involve other experts. This is the case for the 5G roaming security, where during the process of preparing the profiles and the profiles for different solutions for different when we're working on the profiles, we discovered that there are actually different requirements from the business, operations, and security. So we created a very small task force. Again, it started, I think it was probably 20 members. Then we started advertising this work in different working groups, and suddenly we have over 150 members now. We have conf call several times a week. So when it started, we had a lot of work, a lot of discussion ongoing. Now it quieted down a little bit. But again, we have different stakeholders in this project, and it's really difficult to have one unique solution that will fulfill all the requirements from all stakeholders. And it's not easy, and hopefully we will have the final solution soon.
Thanks, Sandra. So with the move to 5G, we're starting to see some non-traditional players in our industry. Can you tell us a bit about the non-traditional players that you expect to see participating on your group, and how they can get involved, and how that's going to happen? I mentioned the network slicing, and because network slicing doesn't involve only the mobile operators, we need to also engage in different vertical industries. And this is something what we have already started with, sending liaison statements to different organizations and asking them for their input, what they think about what their requirements may be. We have already had feedback from several of them, and exchanging the LSs, it's not usually the fastest way. So it will be better if these organizations can join GSMA and also directly participate in the meetings, because it's always easier when you have, for example, meeting face-to-face. You can share your experience, your expectations, your requirements, or you can even have a call. It's definitely faster than just exchanging emails or sending LSs. And in our case, we can definitely then make sure that the requirements are captured and the solution is then prepared based on the requirements.
Another example I can say is can be private networks. We have published a white paper that describes the solution for different options, how the non-public networks can be connected or can use the service or can be connected to the mobile operators or even to the other operators. So we are open to these non-traditional telco partners, and if needed, we can always, if there is a business need and different business requirements, we can always create a new task force or small subgroup that will start working on these requirements and prepare a solution for that. But for that, we need, sorry to interrupt you, but for that we also need these players or these partners to join the GSMA so we can start working with them directly.
And Kathleen, just moving on to yourself, I expect that WAS is also in the similar situation where we're going to be seeing and working with these non-traditional players, and how do you see that evolving?
Right, we're actually excited to engage now. So again, we're seeing, just like as Sandra does, different tact. It's not the technical side, but more on the business commercial agreements, principles for how we work together. There's a whole new group ecosystem coming in. I mean, we're talking about edge cloud services. So we're going to start to see cloud providers, you know, as part of our mix, enterprise providers that want to get involved in either private networks, IoT, network slicing. So we're already starting to look at our agreement templates and how we can incorporate those different players into, we used to look at traditional MNO to MNO or MNO to service provider, whether that is a roaming value-added service, whether that is an IPX provider, but we need to also look at the upstream. How are we going to communicate with them and work with them? And as they're coming more mainstream into our industry, as you know, partners, we need to make sure that our agreements and the principles that we work on, the charging models, et cetera, can flow all the way through that value chain, right? All the way from the top, where us as MNOs, we tend to be in the middle a lot, right? I'll speak from the operator perspective here. And then how we deliver those services across an international boundary. So I'm really excited. I can name so many other services. And one of the key reasons we need the engagement is that this is a new world. I explained that we have people with all sorts of backgrounds, but we have a lot of people from the traditional GSM background, and we're looking at brand new technologies and services. So come on, we'd like to hear your input and help teach us. It's one of the things that WAS does well, so we're wide open for this.
Thanks, Kathleen. So just leaving 5G behind a little bit, I'd like to talk a bit about COVID, unfortunately. So Kathleen, I believe the WAS group has been doing regular surveys of the members of the operator community to see the impacts on roaming traffic and to try and identify recovery. Can you share some of those results and what you're seeing and how you feel we're going to pan out for the rest of this year, perhaps?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And thank you. This was really a great idea to look at, oh my gosh, we had this immediate and dramatic impact, and we needed to, you know, it's really cool that we can now track it. So I'll start with, Sandra mentioned something about the virtualization of the network. We've all been virtual for a year, and I'm done with that. I want to undo our virtualness and leave it to the network. But first, so no surprise at all that COVID and, you know, the restrictions that it required had a significant impact on both inbound and outbound traffic from an international perspective. And now it wasn't a dead spot, but there are areas that definitely went immediately from 60 to 80% reduction. It was actually very scary that first quarter, so Q2 of 2020, to see what happens and know we had all these commitments that we needed to reach. Was that going to happen? How are we going to work? But truly, we've got a lot of hope on the horizon. I was quite concerned, and we all adjusted our budgets to deal with it. But with the vaccine development and distribution, I know that there's consideration by the EU to start opening borders to certain countries that have made some significant vaccine impact. We have other countries that have made those impacts that are trying to support all of their other players around, whether it is countries like India that is really going through it. But from the COVID survey perspective, one of the big, besides, the sudden decrease in traffic, but the eye opener, I mean, we really should have known that, but once the borders closed, the amount of IoT and permanent roaming traffic that we found left on our networks, both people and devices, was just, I mean, for me, it floored me that what was remaining. And so that has really spurred us to start looking at how do we learn from this, from whether it's defining permanent roaming and putting it more prominently into our contractual relationships through the WAS subgroups, through our own companies. How do we manage those impacts? And we're already seeing some slight uptick in the Q1. We've moved to now quarterly surveys, but I truly expect once we hit peak summer, we are going to see that normal big peak that we typically do in specific regions around the world. And really the research is showing that while it might take a couple of years to get fully back up to 2019 levels, we are seeing that right progression already, albeit slow this quarter. We'll see much more. I think it'll be night and day by Q4.
That's great, Kathleen. Really good news, and hope your predictions are correct. I'm glad you mentioned MIOT. So moving on to the next question I had for you. What advice would you give to our member operators if they were thinking about setting up their MIOT relationships? Where would they find the right information?
So MIOT is huge, and when we talk MIOT in the GSMA, it is the mobile IoT. We think of the low power wide area type networks, NB-IoT, the narrowband IoT, or the LTM class. So one of the things you can absolutely always count on with WAS to do extremely well is document guidelines. We're quite good at that support our operators, whether it is the initial business case on entrance into the MIOT space, implementation, managing those operational impacts, working with our co-working groups around the GSMA. But we also provide education through direct operator and associate partner experience sharing. We do this at both our subgroup meetings, our workshops. We've had multiple 5G workshops where we talked about some of these topics because they would relate to 5G, but particularly our WAS plenaries. Those are our meetings twice a year where we really focus on informational sessions along with some of the other things that we provide around networking. But we have everything on MIOT from roaming business benefits, from M2M roaming, the principles around it. We have a very specific WA13 MIOT handbook that even includes a checklist for how do you identify the partners that you're going after? How do you work with them? What are the questions you ask them to make sure that both you're prepared commercially and prepared technically? BA27 covers all the charging principles that we would use. Another two specific very important guidelines and management templates are the WA20. This is the BCE guidelines for operators. How do you implement BCE? Because with MIOT, we have a new charging process, and I'm sure Pascal will talk more about that later. But we also have a document that teaches you how to, or shows you what are the things that you need to do to do this new tariff management in BCE, and how do you exchange that information with a spreadsheet in the annex. So I'd say we've got most of it we've covered, and we have spent some time with IoT operators that have IoT businesses to teach them what's available to them for roaming. So we're happy to help.
That's great. Thanks, Kathleen. So sorry to leave you out in the cold for so long, Pascal, but just before I move to you, I have one question on the chat. Sandra, perhaps you can help here. Is network slicing mandatory for an operator who wants to open 5G?
Yes, so as the operator launches 5G in a standalone mode, the network slicing is a mandatory feature, and there is from the beginning already one slice. And then it's up to the operator, every single operator, whether they want to introduce additional slices. But there is definitely one from the very beginning.
Okay, and just once again, before I move over to you, Pascal, there is another question that's popped up, and this one's for you, Kathleen. Permanent roaming is considered. How are GSMA working groups discussing that more countries are prohibiting permanent roaming?
So that is a hot topic right now. We have a separate task force really looking at this, and we're looking at a couple of different options, but also trying to understand all the regulatory impacts. So, for example, we've got countries that don't allow any kind of permanent roaming or any kind of roaming that is outside their own IMSIs or their own network. So we need to use the eSIM technology in those particular cases. But from what are we doing? We're looking at, can we come up with a centralized definition that while a country might not allow it, we can still define it, and then we'll have to work around those countries because we can't impact the regulations. We certainly use the GSMA to try to influence, but we can't impact that, so we have to work with it. Another way we're looking at is perhaps because of those regulations and because it's very different in different regions of the world, maybe we come up with a few different definitions and clauses that can be used in our commercial agreements that are regional specific that would account for some of that regulation.
Thanks, Kathleen. So that work continues. So Pascal, welcome. And I'd like to pass on to you. And there's been a bit of mention about the work that IDS has been doing, but perhaps you can tell us a bit more about the development of the new billing and settlement solution over the past few years that will replace TAP eventually we're moving forward, and why is this so important for operators to look into considering adopting this process?
Sure. Yeah, it is a very interesting point of time currently, because the landscape is changing. As we know, every time we have a new technology, we are challenged to cope with the needs. And currently, due to the increase of the data traffic, so a few years ago, it's increasing exponentially, this we all know it. And we had to start working on an architecture. So this is where the new billing architecture, named the Billing and Charging Evolution, BCE, came. So this is really driven by the data. So for the data, why? Because data is home-rooted. So it means that we have a key opportunity to separate, to decouple the wholesale from the retail requirements. Since the traffic is home-rooted, you can rely on your home CDRs to perform the retail billing, while for the wholesale billing, you must rely on the source of information from your partner. And there, instead of exchanging detailed records that we are doing currently with the TAP process for transfer account procedures, then we are just exchanging a report. So this is really the key feature with the billing and charging evolution, exchanging aggregated reports instead of detailed records with the charges. So that is inappropriate for the future, for the future technologies, and BCE is the referral billing and charging architecture for the 5G. So this is really key to keep in mind. Billing and charging evolution must be implemented for the 5G standalone architecture implementation. So this is really key. And now today operators can have the opportunity to anticipate the 5G and implementing today the billing and charging evolution with different scenarios like the mobile IoT, because billing and charging evolution opens door to bring new business models. You can implement new business models, and here for the mobile IoT, you could monetize it by doing so. So on the process today, it's very hard to change the charging rules. The challenge is, well, as Kathleen said, from mobile IoT, we would like to count the number of devices, and there are a lot, as we've seen. And the usage is very, very low. So in terms of business, it's not, not correctly balanced. So therefore, the charging model must take into account the number of devices registered on your network on top of the volume of the usage. So this is one thing that can be addressed with the billing and charging evolution, making sure that we can be prepared on time instead of mixing it with the 5G implementation. Because I can tell you, there's a lot of things to do to implement it. Also, so that's basically, so now for the next steps, once operators get confidence by implementing the mobile IoT, they could extend it to more services like voice over LTE and all the data, such that they could unify the charging models for the services. So
Great, thanks Pascal. And where should members go to find more support for this new evolution? What is IDS doing to help operators with their implementation?
Sorry, say it again, excuse me.
So what is IDS doing to help operators with their BCE implementation?
In fact, don't forget that the standards are written by the GSMA members. As such, so currently the BCE version 1.1 is released to evolve. And all the specifications that are currently written are on the info center, on IC2, on the IDS group and subgroups. So they are really invited to go to the TD 200 series, explaining all the process for the billing and charging evolution. So we have regular group and subgroup meetings all along the year. So 6 times a year, we really have key meetings to get all aligned on the future, to get aligned on the roadmaps, implementations. But also we have a lot of meetings or weekly meetings to develop BCE, because as I told you, there are a lot of works to do, and we are really challenged. So the more we are, the more perspectives we have, and that's really interesting because it's different cultures, different business perspectives, and that makes it more rich to develop. So that's really interesting. So we are gathering return of experiences also from the early adopters of billing and charging evolution, and this is where we could also gather all these experiences into documents. So there's a BCE handbook that will summarize all the experiences and helping also future members who want implementing the BCE to have a good guideline to know what are the good practices to develop it. So so here we are really, I think life is for sharing. That's really the good place to say, okay, now we are sharing all the experiences among the members.
That's great, Pascal. There's been a question that's come up on the chat that, although isn't directly related to BCE, is on blockchain. So I'll just read it out for you. How far is utilising blockchain, distributed ledger technology, in automated roaming settlement and clearing down the road, or what are the obstacles being faced, even from a compliance perspective?
So, okay, again, just one word before starting answering the question. You see that it is very rich to come to this group, because I did not expect even working on the blockchain, because we are in the roaming ecosystem, or focused on the billing, the charging rules. Now we are challenged with the blockchain. So for over 1 year now, with the GSMA, so everything is orchestrated by the GSMA. We have 8 operators working on the blockchain. And indeed, this is something that we learn from it. So this is outside of the scope of IDS, but it was addressed on IDS, but now for the discussions, it was handled outside of this group. But again, IDS would redirect members to the blockchain for Wholesale roaming group. And in this group, we made some assessment of what could be the profitability of the blockchain in our ecosystem. And today, indeed, that would be the automation of the processes. Because like BCE, the principles of BCE is to separate the usage, the commercial charges, the commercial principles, and the settlement. Well, blockchain is really, it fits to those needs, because we have a smart contract identifying with a unique source of truth, signing a contract on both sides that can be replicated to any third parties who wants to get the latest information. And then we have the usage, where we can also commit into the exchange and see if there's any deviation before running the settlement, the true up, because there it means we will have a dispute. So it's better to solve issues before entering into a dispute. So blockchain could help to automate all the wholesale roaming process. That's the perspective, at least today.
Okay, thanks for that, Pascal. There's been quite a few questions on the chat about joining the groups, which sounds great. So just to let everyone know, each working group has their own page on the Info Centre, and in the top right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see an orange Join Group button, and you're all welcome to please, use that and join our groups. We've been very happy. So before we just move away from the billing for a moment, and I just want to bring up Kathleen again. We know that all the groups meet regularly and have meetings, but WAS does something a bit different to the other groups, and perhaps you can give us some insight into the WAS events and what benefit they will be to our members. What's the main benefit and what makes them different to the other group meetings?
You bet. So WAS plenaries are definitely unique amongst the GSMA working group. So we oftentimes refer to them, while they're plenary meetings, we call them our networking and information sharing. So that should give you one clue about what I'm about to say. So along with updates of the work across both the GSMA and in our specific subgroups, we place a great deal of emphasis on education and on operator experiences. Even if we have associate members talking about a particular topic, we ask them to bring an operator. So everything is relatable to our membership. And our membership is certainly expanding with the new services, the new capabilities, the new kind of rules we have within the GSMA, and this is an excellent thing. So we try to draw speakers from across all the different regions, and with that, we also have a very clear focus on diversity. I know you don't think about that within the working groups, but it's really critical for innovative thinking that we do have that diversity of thought, that diversity of inclusion. So in the past, some examples of that, in the past years, we've not only ensured that our panels and our speakers are diverse, but we've highlighted a number of different diversity topics, whether it is gender, age, etc. We had a whole group of millennials doing a presentation, and we learned a huge amount from them. And guess what? They learned a huge amount from the folks that were already working in the space. These were people that were new into the roaming space. So a significant difference with the WAS plenaries is the scope and the scale. So along with the information systems that I was just talking about, we also provide the appropriate timing and the venue to support our commercial teams, right? These are our operator-to-operator, face-to-face roaming tariff negotiations and networking. So networking is really important because you must be able to create that relationship. So our events are set up to accommodate at least 1,200 people. And frequently we reach that cap very quickly. They include an extensive exhibitor space, some private network meeting rooms, alongside our M&O tariff negotiation networking rooms. So, and the overall venues always support good relationship building, and which is critical to any successful business relationship. So I think that kind of highlights how things are a little different in our plenaries.
That's great, Kathleen. Thank you very much. So just to close off, I have one more question that I'd like you all to answer for me. So what is the one thing that you would like to see from the GSMA members or the industry at large to support the activities you're working on? And perhaps we can start with Sandra.
Well, I would say that every single work what we are doing in GSMA is contribution driven. So we need active members who are willing to share their experience, their problem, their ideas, because based on that, we build our solution. So definitely active members, share your problems, share your ideas with us. That's what we need.
Thanks, Sandra. And Pascal?
Yeah, I'm repeating myself, but standards are written by the members, and as Sandra said, we have a huge diversity of culture and of perceptions, so that's really good to share all together. So please join us.
Yeah, and I think it's important to notice, especially with the BCE work, Pascal, that the requirements for these solutions come from the members. So if you have requirements or you have needs, this is where you bring them to have them validated and ensure that they end up in your solutions moving forward. So Kathleen, would you like to?
Yeah, the same thing. I would say the same thing that Sandra and Pascal said, but I'd boil it down to our ask to engagement, right? We are poised for tremendous capability and service change in our industry with 5G and beyond. So it's been, wow, at least a decade or more since we've had this kind of change in our industry. So I'd say now's the time to engage and really help influence our future solutions and directions too. I mean, we're open to all of this. So, and as well, I'd love to see additional diversity coming in and mentoring of whether it's that next generation or a group that is maybe focused on one area that would like to learn more about whether it is the specifications around our billing or the networking side or even there's the business and commercial side. I think that we have the ability to do this. So I'd like to open it up for that too.
That's great. Well, I just want to thank you all very much for joining us today and sharing your knowledge to this group. There's a few questions that we haven't got to on the chat, but we will follow up afterwards with written answers and share them with everyone. So now I would like to pass over to Barney Stinton from our membership group. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Julia. Thanks, everybody. That was fascinating. Absolutely brilliant. Given me 8 minutes to, well, less than 8 minutes if we're going to get through some questions. My name is Barney. I work in the membership, and the membership team is there for all of our members to help navigate through the GSMA, help strategize, and help you get the engagement and the value out of your membership. Next slide, please. We talked a lot about the kind of working groups today in Info Center, and I just want to reiterate a couple of questions, and I know that Julia's touched on this already, but Info Center is your online hub for access for all of the working groups, all of the output of the working groups. If you're having problems with Info Center logging on, please let us know. I'll give you the email address to contact us on after. But Info Center really is everything you need. It's that kind of starting point for everything you need. And it's also a great online directory of all of our members, all of the individuals within our members' companies. So from a business development point of view and a networking point of view, it really is second. So just a quick overview of the working groups. It's fraud and security. That speaks for itself. I think intellectual property rights, where we work to protect IP, and we define the effective regulations around that. And there's the internet group, which we heard from this morning, looking at new internet technologies and opportunities, interoperability, data specifications and settlement, networks, SIM, terminal steering, and of course the wholesale agreements and solutions group that we had Catherine speaking on earlier today. Next slide, please. I just wanted to very quickly recap the types of membership categories we have. There are some slight changes. Operator memberships remains the same, and Rapporteur membership is new. It's 12 months old, and it's for MVNOs as well. So they kind of form up the operator and MVNO side of things. Then we have industry membership. That was called associate membership. We've just changed the name. Everything else remains the same. So that's for everybody in the ecosystem of the GSMA that aren't operators or MVNOs. We're seeing huge growth in the industry membership category as well. Then we have sector members. This is a real kind of business development opportunity for those in the vertical sectors that GSMA is looking to become a bridge between our own mobile technology, mobile communication industry And the vertical sectors that we're looking at, that is financial services, manufacturing, healthcare, and this is a kind of stepping stone, a toe in the water, if you like, for people who wouldn't normally become members of the GSMA, but where our worlds are overlapping, as we're seeing so much more coming in the future. Next slide, please. So working groups, as we've spoken about a lot, they really are the core, the foundation of the GSMA work and the reason we're here. But there are other many benefits that I'll just run through quickly, so save a bit of time. Info Center, as you know, that's a members-only portal, gives you access to the working groups and RAEX and other key tools as well. There's a lot of resource and training available by your membership, and discounts on services as well, including device database, TAC allocation fees, and security accreditation scheme. Something that is very popular and incredibly insightful and useful for our members, and that's GSMA Intelligence, that subscription service. If you would like to hear more about that, please do get in contact with the email address that I'll give you in a minute, and we will be very happy to introduce you to the GSMAI team, and they will book in a presentation and a run through their platform. Then we have the regional support. Wherever you are in the world, you will be part of one of our regional teams, and it's always worth contacting your head of region to see what's going on. There are kind of subcommittees, if you like, in the regions. And then plenty of marketing opportunities. We in membership are very, very keen to hear from you to highlight your white papers, reports, your testimonials, your success stories. Please do use us as this voice piece for the industry. So do send those stories into us. And then there's the events and networking opportunities. Now, obviously, we've had slight hiatus in the last 12 months, whereby things haven't been physical. But actually, 2 months ago, we did have MWC Shanghai, which was a physical and online event, so a hybrid event, but we were there in person. It was a great success. It was very, very safe, and we've got a huge amount of processes and procedures looking ahead to MWC Barcelona at the end of June. We worked incredibly hard to put in place many, many safeguarding features that will keep us all safe and our visitors safe. And we are looking forward to being there physically in person, and there will be members of my team they're looking forward to meeting you. So please do book in and look at the discounts on delegate passes. But if you can't make it, and if you're not feeling up to it, please do log in virtually. Look forward to seeing you there. Next slide, please. It's my team and I. There we are in all our glory. There aren't many of us, so you will come through to a human being, never to any problems, answer any questions, guide you in the right direction. So do drop us an email at membership@gsma.com. If you're an operator, you'll be looked after by Yvette and Maria. If you are an industry or a rapporteur member, or any other type of member, Harry, Abel, Lucy, and I will be looking after you. Right, we do have 1 minute. I don't know if we've actually got time for questions. What we will do is we will come back to you afterwards with the answers to the questions that you've posted in the chat. These sessions are recorded and they will be available. We will be sending everybody the link who logged on, and it leaves me just time to thank everybody involved in this chat, and thank you very, very much for logging in. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.